Who knows, a friendly little visit like this could be the start of something. You're walking along the street, or you're at a party.
Or else you're alone, and then you suddenly dig. You're looking in someone's eyes, you suddenly realize that this could be the start of something big.
Hey, Kim here. The world of classic television is often held up as a boys' club. We know these men, Sheldon Leonard, Rod Serling, William Asher. These men are rightly remembered today as just some of the legendary creators who put the shows we still remember today on the air. However, while these men were making their names and their reputations, there were also a number of women coming up in the industry during the time. They were writing, they were producing, and one was even directing. These are the women of the golden age of television. Kathleen Hite was one of my entrees into this area of interest when I found my way to her work on the legendary Western series, Gunsmoke. As I started reading on this smart and talented creator, one thing became clear to me. As one of the most prolific writers on what was, up until recently, the longest running scripted series on television, if her contributions to TV could be ignored, think of all the work from talented women which is falling through the cracks. Kathleen Hite was born in June of 1917 in Wichita, Kansas. The Emporia Gazette profiled Hite in May 1962 in an article entitled, "Gunsmoke Writer is Proud of Her Deep Roots in Kansas." Her early years are described. Both sets of grandparents came to Kansas in the Old West days, and all were great storytellers. My father was a cattleman, and we had a family ranch in New Mexico operated by my brother. After graduating from college in the late 1930s, she quickly started writing for radio. She was, however, pulled west when a job at CBS presented itself. Radio Recall, the journal for the Metropolitan Washington Old Time Radio Club, provides an unsourced but still delightful quote from Hite. CBS had a policy against hiring women writers, so I hired on as a secretary. I figured once I got inside the building, I could destroy them from within. I badgered the head of the writing department until he gave me a chance to write. The article goes on to report that Hite became the first woman staff writer at CBS and before too long was promoted to the position of script editor in 1950, where she wrote for series The Adventures of Philip Marlowe until 1951. She continued writing for radio until the middle of the decade. She left CBS in the early 1950s, choosing the riskier but more fruitful path as a freelance writer. It was in 1954 that she lands her first screenwriting credit on Crown Theater with Gloria Swanson. Looking at her filmography, she doesn't struggle working regularly. She's billed as writer on shows like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Jane Wyman Presents Fireside Theater, and Wagon Train all throughout the middle of the decade. Kathleen Hite also did her fair share of creating for the small screen. She's billed as a creator on The Texan alongside writer James Gunn. The series starred Rory Calhoun as a Civil War veteran roaming Texas as a gunfighter. While the series is a bit of a blip in the wave of Westerns on television, it did run for 2 seasons. Hite is also billed as a creator, along with Gunsmoke producer Norman Macdonald on the series Empire, which ran between 1962 and 1964. The series ran for 33 episodes and starred Richard Egan, a pre-Almost Everything Ryan O'Neal, and a pre-Most Things Charles Bronson in a dramatic Western. The show followed Egan as Jim Ridigo, a foreman on a massive ranch, and the resulting complications of life and love. The series is perhaps closest to Hite, at least from an outsider's perspective, as it reflects the pioneering and ranching history in her family. In fact, Hite is probably best known for her contributions to the long-running classic Western Gunsmoke. She joined the writing team in 1957 when the mainstay was in its 3rd season. She's billed on 42 episodes of the show until season 10, episode 31, entitled Guilt, Guilt. While Gunsmoke ran a massive, for its time, 20 seasons, Hite is one of the more prolific writers on the show behind creators John Meston, Norman Macdonald, and Charles Marquis Warren, as well as Les Crutchfield. A write-up in the November 3rd, 1961 Alabama Journal paints a fascinating picture of Hite when she was interviewed with Meston and Macdonald. Throughout the interview, she's open about the writing process. She says, "I have 4 more scripts to write, and I don't know how I'm going to do them. I sat all day at the typewriter and just threw paper in the wastebasket." She goes on, expanding about the toils of being a TV writer. "I watch it every week and it kills me, and sometimes it can be an awful painful experience. I have a great pride in the kind of dialogue I write, and when it is tampered with, as it usually is, it incenses me."
Much? It flames on the side of my face.
In a Wichita Beacon article in 1970, she was quoted about her time on Gunsmoke, saying, "I wrote as many as 12 Gunsmokes in a year. That's the equivalent of 6 movies." Newspaper sources of the period tie her very closely to Gunsmoke, but her tenure with the show ended when the show saw some growing pains. An article in the Wichita Eagle, dated the 8th of June, 1975, describes the period. CBS fired the co-creators of Gunsmoke, for which she had been writing since its radio days. She says, "I was still under contract with about 5 scripts that I owed them. They brought in a British movie producer. At my first meeting with him, he asked me if there really was a Dodge City. I went home and called my attorney." Hite's strength permeates from every word of the occasional newspaper feature, which outlines her career during the 1960s and 1970s. One of her ongoing frustrations comes in being rewritten, as all of us do. She's quoted in the Arizona Republic in 1972. "I once tried to tell an actor I'd be happy to play his part and he could spend all his time writing, but he didn't take me seriously. I wouldn't presume to act, direct, or produce a show, yet they all seem to think they can write." Though, when reading profiles like this one coming up, published in July 1963, it is all a woman can do to keep her sanity. Author Charles Whitbeck writes, "The point is, Miss Hite can write well for girls too, but her men's dialogue doesn't sound like it came from a woman's typewriter." This, of course, comes after the point in the article where Whitbeck describes trying to butter up Hite by complimenting an episode he thought she wrote, only to learn she didn't write the episode. Hite continued writing throughout the following decades, primarily sticking to Westerns. Her filmography shows her working on some shows like The Guns of Will Sonnet and Lancer. However, her longest stint was on the family drama The Waltons. She was billed on 24 episodes of the show between 1974 and 1981. She reflects on her time at The Waltons. The Wichita Eagle quotes her, "This is a period in which I was most personally invested. Do you realize that John Boy Walton is in my exact time period? He graduated from high school in 1934, so did I. He went to a small college, so did I." The Radio Recall article goes into the most detail about her later writing career. Like many of her contemporaries, she was heavily involved in the Writers Guild and was honored repeatedly throughout the course of her career by her contemporaries. She's often written up in the Kansas newspapers throughout the 1970s after she donated her full library of scripts to her alma mater, Wichita State University. Kathleen Hite passed away in 1989 at the age of 81. While many remember the Western wave of shows during the 1950s and 1960s, and thanks to networks like MeTV and Antenna TV, however, with each passing year, the names and faces behind the camera grow a little more difficult to remember. While period sources tend to bill Kathleen Hite as the only woman working in the typically masculine Western genre, she wasn't alone. Women were working in classic TV in a number of roles, and it's time we celebrate their contributions. Stay tuned for more here at Ticklish Business as we honor and deconstruct the world of classic entertainment. My name is Kim. You can find me on Twitter at ticklish_biz, as well as at kpierce624. Facebook person, give us a like or a follow over at Ticklish Business Podcast. We have lots of classic entertainment content posting at journeysinclassicfilm.com. As always, if you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe. Thanks, guys.